I'm Sara Ajlyakin, born and raised in Damascus, Syria. I fled Syria in 2013, and right now I am exiled in Istanbul, Turkey. Al-Jumhuriya is one of the few remaining independent Syrian media collectives, and we were founded in 2012. We were a group of volunteers in a very specific and exciting historical moment, and right now we have grown much past that, but we are still here. And we work at the tangent of media production, journalism, and knowledge production. So that's how I describe us, basically. Yeah.
Do I say hi, or there's no need for hi? Hi! My name is Karam Nachar. I'm from Syria. I haven't been able to go back to my country since 2011, and I now live and work in Istanbul, Turkey. For most people, when they think about Syria at the moment, it's a very bleak story. There's a complete victory of sort of authoritarian regimes or smaller militias that are trying to be like the authoritarian regime in Damascus. But 10 years ago, or maybe 11, 12 years ago, in 2011, 2012, it was actually pretty much the exact opposite. It was a place of great hope, and is as a result of that moment of hope that we came together, a group of journalists and academics and writers who felt that in line with everything that was happening in the country on the ground, all these people coming together to protest, to organize, to document, to ask for a democratic future Syria. We felt that that cannot happen without also independent media and without independent platforms for people to actually come together virtually, to know about what's happening, to bear witness to the events on the ground, and to also discuss like what this future Syria is gonna look like. By 2013, 2014, we realized that not only was the protest movement defeated, but it was basically a choice between either like going back to that sort of kingdom of silence, of not being able to say anything about what was happening in the country, or trying to migrate and set up a part of our operations from outside.
I think one of the most challenging things of running a media organization in exile is the very statement exile, because you wouldn't imagine how the majority of the time you're physically in exile, but all of your mental energy, your creative energy, your organizational energy is still inside Syria. I've always joked I've always had two watches, so one for in São Paulo where I was, and one for Syria. So like it always reminded me that I'm existentially operating on a time frame that is sort of where I wake up and where I sleep, but everything else is on a different time frame.
This past year is going to be a record year for us in terms of like how many people we've reached through the website, more than 2 million unique visitors by the end of the year. But there's also a certain challenge when it comes to exiled media, and particular media that are exiled as a result of authoritarianism, as a result of a situation where people are terrified to discuss politics, let alone follow a page where they feel every single whisper and every move is being monitored by authoritarian regimes or paramilitary militias or people who are just like out there to suppress freedom of expression and democratic change. I have a very close friend from my hometown, from Aleppo in Syria, and he's someone who's not very politically active. He has democratic aspirations for the country, but he's not someone who's very politically active. He goes and visits Syria maybe once every 6-7 years. And he wants to maintain the ability to go to Syria and visit his family and his loved ones. He tells me every time I see him that I cannot follow your page because I'm scared that someone is monitoring the pages that I follow. Because what if when I enter, they ask for my phone and they open my Facebook and my Instagram and my Twitter, and they see the accounts that I follow, and they immediately arrest me and torture me because of the accounts that I follow. These are not surreal, absurd stories for Syrians. These are things that happen on a daily basis. People get arrested, and people get tortured, and people get killed and forcibly disappeared for the simple act of writing a post on Facebook expressing their opinion, speaking their mind.
Syria is literally one of the most dangerous countries for journalism and journalists in the entire world. And I think having a life source outside the country is, it's very much a symbiotic relationship. I don't think it's a dichotomy of those who are inside versus those who are outside. We're very much a hybrid organization. We have our colleagues inside of Syria. We have editorial teams outside of Syria that help receive information from different parts of Syria, that weave the stories together, that provide them with a source of income as well. Being a bit on the other side of the border allows you to empower those local narratives by weaving them into a more national analytical perspective and discourse. We cannot just have the Syrian regime building a discourse on what Syria is in its entirety. We have to also contribute to that. So I think this is something that I personally managed to do much better from outside of Syria.
Just a few months ago, against all hope and contrary to all expectations, there was again a renewed movement of peaceful protest and democratic activism in the country. And we reached out to them and we said, we would love to interview one of you guys and to understand how you're strategizing, how are you thinking, would you grant us an interview? And the immediate response that we got on Telegram was like, hey, listen, we grew up reading Al-Jumhuriya, we love your content, this is how we think politically about the country, these are the discussions that we followed to feel that this is not just a random gathering of people that just found themselves in this country. It is a public sphere where people want to be fully engaged citizens and where people want to hold whoever is in power accountable and where people want to, have a voice in how, their lives are unfolding and their resources are run and whether they can one day live in a democratic republic or democratic country.
Media is integral to every single developmental humanitarian effort of Syrian civil society, and without it there is no conversation point, and we cannot have or dream of a future democratic Syria, whereas we have no information, we have no facts, we have no data, we have no analysis, we only have propaganda. If the Syrian independent media sector falters, dies, stops to function, we have propaganda, and this is not how you build democratic communities. It's, I think, very straightforward.
I think we all agree that democracies or countries that are hoping to become free and democratic can't really survive without independent media. This is something that we often take for granted, but I think all of us, all over the world, even in older democracies, are starting to be wary about. And when it comes to Syria, it's not only the state that we need to worry about. It is not only the private sector that we need to worry about. It is the different de facto powers that are all over the country. Syria, obviously you have a very brutal authoritarian regime that has asserted its presence in Damascus. And on top of that, you have 3 or 4 other, de facto powers that are aspiring to be equally authoritarian and repressive. And so that only highlights the importance and the critical role of independent media to tell the Syrian people what is actually happening, independent of these different competing agendas.
I can very confidently say that without a flourishing Syrian independent media sector, we will not have Syrian civil society. We're seeing democratic spaces closing, not only in the Middle East, but also in Europe, in the United States, and being defeated is just simply not an option. It's not just a hobby. It's not an option, it's an existential issue. It's not an option not to have and strive for democratic spaces inside Syria, but also in our areas of diaspora. And so when we are struggling for a democratic Syria inside Syria, but also from where we're exiled, we're also struggling for a democratic Turkey. We're also struggling for a democratic Germany and a democratic France and the United States and etc. I think cynicism is the end of humanity. And I think the moment we stop is the moment that we are defeated as human beings, not only in Syria.